Hi, welcome to the breadboard. In this video we're going to be looking at this little device here. What you're seeing is an Econ Systems 13 megapixel color camera sensor with autofocus. By that, when you use this, you'll actually see this device here. It's got mechanical parts in for focusing the lens, so you can get pretty close to a device. Designed for inspection and various other things. It's a module. It is not what you would call a complete product because you would need to build it into something. I don't have a case for this yet. I'm thinking of designing one and 3D printing it and putting it in there for my own use later on. But right now I want to go over some of its features with you and show you what it can do. If you've been keeping up with the last few videos that I have released, all of my top-down shots that you've seen have actually been recorded using this camera for the top-down camera because it fully supports 4K at 30 frames a second. Now, I've looked at cameras before from other manufacturers, but they've always been USB 2 and so limited to how much bandwidth can go through USB 2, thereby limiting the resolution against frame rate that is possible. So some of the older cameras might have had close to the same resolution as this one, but the USB limited it to about maybe 15 frames a second, if that, which is really no good for live kind of streaming or recording in what we've got, like I'm doing right here. So this one from Econ Systems actually supports up to 4,224 by 3,156 pixels. Now, if you want to take that to a specific 4K, 2K, etc., then it has also a supported resolution of 3840 by 2160, which is a 2160p standard frame rate, and that's what I'm using right now. Now, of course, I'm not recording with this right now because this device here is sitting on my bench and it's not plugged in, so I can't. What I've got is, even though I'm recording at 4K so that I can show you this in operation in a moment, I'm using a 1080p camera zoomed in to show you the device. Now, in a moment, I'm going to plug it in and we'll start looking at other things using this camera, but at the full 4K resolution. Because it's got built-in autofocus, it's got face tracking, it's got 13 megapixel autofocus, uncompressed UYVY format, and compressed MJPEG. It supports USB 3.1 Gen 1 device. It's got a Type-C USB connector over here. It's got a 10-pin GPIO header right here on the edge. Now that is so that you can trigger things like start recording, stop recording, turn on a IR light, maybe if you wanted to do some kind of toward night vision, or turn on some spotlights and things like that, or do other things. It's not supported right the way it is right now with that. You have to do some development. As I said, this is a module for inclusion in other products versus a ready-to-roll webcam, although it does work as a ready-to-roll webcam. I just got to plug it in and I can use most of the features, just not this GPIO connectivity. It's fully plug-and-play UVC compliant, so you don't have to load any drivers, which is great. Supports Windows 7, 8, 10, Ubuntu, etc., etc. It supports iHDR, and it's a true 13 megapixel CMOS sensor. It can do still capture. Already mentioned the resolutions. It's got preview formats in things like HD 720 or Full HD 1080p or Ultra HD 4K. Obviously, some of these features you would need to write specific applications for talking to the board and capturing a still while you're doing a video, for instance. Angular view is not the same for all preview resolution, so it may be some of the previews, it may be just taking a smaller piece of the image sensor to be able to show you that. Already mentioned the output formats, UYVY or MJPEG. It will operate from 5 volts and it consumes about 370 milliamps. So it's not ultra low power consumption, but then it is doing quite a bit, including having autofocus, which takes a bit. The model of this, by the way, if you want to look it up, and I will provide links in the description so that you can go have a look at it and even buy one if you want to, is the C3Cam_130. If you just Google that or follow the link I provide, you will find it. So some of the other features that this supports, if you're running on, for instance, a USB 2, if that's what your computer has, this will work. You're just not going to get the same frame rates. But it does support things like VGA at 120 frames per second, even on USB 2. Of course, if you're using the UYVY uncompressed video stream, then you're not going to get the same frame rates because it's not compressed. But if you go to MJPEG, then obviously you can get more frames per second through it because it will be compressing the data stream before it sends it out of the card through the USB and to your PC that's doing the capture. So some of the limitations of the camera are that if you are using uncompressed UYVY format, then the best you'll get at the higher resolutions is 15 frames per second if you're running in either 4K Ultra HD, which is the 3840 by 2160, or 4096 by 2160. But if you want to use the absolute maximum that the camera has to offer, which is the 4208 by 3120, which is quite an improvement, and it's obviously not a 16 by 9, then you're reduced down to about 9 frames or even less when you're in uncompressed mode. But if you go back to an MJPEG mode of operation, you're back up to 20 frames per second, and that will even support that under a USB 2 because of the compression. It allows you to do the higher frame rates, of course. Now, this camera module, this complete module here that you see, is not cheap. It's not the same price as your Logitech webcams and things like that. But when you consider that it is capturing at a full 4K resolution on USB 3.1 connectivity, then it's not a bad price. And what I am looking forward to trying with this is to do some capturing on 3D printing, as well as actually using it right here for doing webcasts, using an 8K capture coming down onto my work surface. Sorry, I keep saying 8K, doing a 4K capture on my work surface to give you guys a much better quality production than what I've been doing before, which has been using standard 1080p. If it works out fine, then you'll see much more to come. And as I said, the last 2 or 3 videos that I have published have all been using this camera, but I have been rendering the final output that I've published to YouTube in 1080p, so you wouldn't really be able to see the details of it. This video, I'm going to, if everything works out okay, render it and publish it in full 4K so we can see what the difference is. So without further ado, let me get this plugged back into my computer. I'm running it under Windows 10 with all the updates, and show you a few more things of what it can do. I'm not going to hook it up to Linux and other things, although it does support those, but I am going to try and run through a few of the features, including the automatic focus and things like that. So let's get it plugged in and see how it performs. Okay, we're back. So got a board down here, just a scrap board that I picked up from an old laptop, just to use as a bit of an example. The screen that you're currently looking at, though, this one, is actually from my Canon HF-G30 camera. So it's a 1080p picture, and I can optically zoom right in to get a better picture at, and just lifting up, zooming in with the camera, what I want to see, but it's still at 1080p, right? That's zoomed right in there. Okay, I just want to show you that because the camera that's above me here does not have a zoom on it. I mean, you can do digital zoom, but we all know that gets a bit grainy and things like that. But it does have the ability to get very close and still be able to focus. It's got autofocus built in. And just an example, if I pick this up and take it towards my Canon camera that's currently being used for the view, all right, I am 2 feet away from it, and at that zoom level it can't focus, so I have to back away a bit. See if you can find a spot where it will actually manage to focus on it. A bit further, there. So I'm about 2.5 feet away from it to be able to get a focus, and you can see how much of the image I've got, basically the thickness of that little stub of the board right here that it's able to get as close to. So what can the CCAM-130 4K autofocus camera do for us? Well, first of all, it's 4K, and we're going to be able to get very close with the autofocus capability. It's a little annoying sometimes when you're recording videos, because every time something gets in here it'll try and refocus and things, which can be annoying if you're always trying to be down here and stay focused. But if you're using it as something like inspection or other capabilities, then you can lock off the focus once you've set it, and that's just a simple setting in the driver that you can use. But I wanted to show you how close we can get using the camera. So let's flip over to it right now, and then we'll see basically the same view. I mean, I'm still zoomed right in on my Canon HFG30, but let's just flip over. So this is the full 4K image that we have here. So if I pick this up, I'm just going to hand hold it just for the moment, because my camera is mounted up on a beam. So I'm going to bring this up, and it's staying focused right now. But let's see how close. I'm about 6 inches away from it right now, and it's still staying quite well focused on it. I'll tip it slightly so we don't have so many reflections. So I'm going to zoom in a bit further. You can see it's still quite happily focusing. So now I've got just as much zoom as I had with the optical on my Canon HFG30 camera, but I'm about 6 inches away from it. I'm not holding it very still, so a little tough for this little camera to... There we go, so it can do it. So I can get in just as close as I could with the HFG30. Only difference is I'm about 4 inches away from the camera. Sorry, I keep losing focus there because my arms keep moving while I'm talking. And there we go. But the difference is this image is 4K, not 1080p. So you could make that and get a much better detail of image. Okay, I've managed to put it onto a little stand. If I just show you what I've got here. As you can see, put it on a little stand here, just holding the USB camera. This is it here, looking at the board. So you can see I'm only about 3 or 4 inches away from it. So if I flip back to what the camera is seeing, you can see it's quite capable of focusing on that. And the difference being it's a full 4K image. So it's 4 times, so double the number of dots in both directions of the 1080p Canon HFG30 that I was showing you before. So if I go back to that same view right there, and I zoom back in again, this is optical zoom of course, but still only 1080p. Alright, that's looking at the same part of it. The camera's at a different angle, so forgive that. I just can't get everything in front of me. Otherwise I'd never be able to manipulate anything. So there it is, and then if I, so right, that's as far in as I can get from where the camera is. I could probably get it slightly bigger, but I very quickly lose the ability to focus without putting a macro lens on. I flip to this camera, all right, that's the same view. You can see it's as good a picture, but it's much higher resolution, and therefore you can see a lot more detail. All right, so you could just freeze the frame and have a look. I'll leave it there for a few seconds. This one, as I said, is the Canon 1080p video, but zoomed right in. And then this one is the 4K camera from Econ Systems, and it's about as close as it can get. I don't think it will focus any closer. Let me just see if I can get it a little closer, just out of curiosity. I don't know if it will still be able to. Yeah, I think it's just out of its capabilities to focus there. So if I try and bring it up just to see where it will finally be able to focus on it. Damn. No, not quite. It's focusing down here, but it's not focusing on the top of that component. Mind you, that component is like 4 or 5 millimeters higher than the rest of the board. If I just shift position slightly. Alright, so it's not quite focusing there, but let me just bring up the properties for that camera, and I will try and adjust it. Just bear with me while I bring this up. Right, you can't really see what I'm doing because I'm not screen capturing, but I'm bringing up the properties that come with the standard camera kind of properties you see in Windows. And if I go into camera control, then I can go into, nope, not zoom, don't want to zoom. Focus, it's on auto at the moment, so I've turned it off of auto. So it's now on manual focus. If I come right up to the top, that's as tight as I can get. So you can see I'm blurring out there. I am in focus there. So that's as best as it will get from that current position. If I move it out just a touch, so I'm still just a touch too close. So yeah, I'm about 3 inches away now, and you can see it's pretty sharp. And if we zoomed right in, I mean, you've got a digital zoom as well, but of course that's not really going to help, right? See there, I've digitally zoomed in, but I'm just putting the autofocus on to see if it could figure it out. No, it can't. So I'm going to move it out just a little bit. That's the zoom causing me issues there. Okay, so there we go. So I've now digitally zoomed in as well. So you can actually quite clearly see a lot of detail, way better than you can. And I mean, that's probably about a 1080 view, maybe a bit less pixel wise now. But I'm just going to zoom back out again. Alright, so that's my fullest view, which is just as good as what I had with the Canon camera. Only difference now is I can zoom in quite considerably. That's the full zoom. It says 800 on the scale here. So if you're doing inspection, that is quite a handy thing to have there. Alright, I'm just going to pull it right back out again. Okay, so now we're right back out. So that's, yeah, a good few inches. So if you're doing component inspection and you had that on a big screen, that would be nice to have. There are other capabilities that I'm not able to demonstrate with this right now because I don't have the developer toolkit. I'm not familiar with developing software for cameras, so I'm just using the built-in drivers and things like that. But as you can see, this camera works very, very well. USB-C, full frame rates, so you can use it, as you've seen, as a recording camera, and you can also use it quite happily as an inspection camera, so as like I'm showing you right here. Okay, tweaking the settings, you can add lights to it using the GPIO pins and the developer kit. You could, under software control, turn on a infrared light or a visible spotlight just to help with the camera view. You could use it to do other things as well. I mean, they're just uncommitted GPIO lines. You could have a button put onto there to automatically take a picture and things like that. So anyway, that's pretty much everything I think for this camera that I can show you for this video. I didn't want to make it too long, but I did want to show you how close you could get with it at a full 4K resolution. And I think the camera itself will do a little bit better than 4K. It's just I won't be able to show you better than 4K anyway. If I look at the resolutions that it supports, I can actually capture. I'm currently capturing at 3840 by 2160, which is the standard 4K resolution. But the camera will let me capture up to 4208. So that's 1, 2, 3, almost 368 pixels extra in the x-axis, left to right, and it'll let me go up to 3120 from 2160, which is an almost nearly 1,000, just under 1,000, 900 and odd extra lines in the other direction. So that would make for quite a high resolution picture. Not quite 8K, of course, but it's getting certainly beyond 4K. All right. If you're running on the standard, though, then it will be 3840 by 2160, which is what I'm recording this at. Anyway, that ends the initial review of this camera. If you look at my previous videos chronologically to this one, 2 or 3 videos, the previous 2 or 3 videos, I have been using this camera capturing at 1080p to actually use as part of my videos. So it just shows that you can use it for that kind of thing if you want to. I will try and do some more higher resolution videos going forward, but it will be using this camera for the higher resolution because everything else is only 1080p that I have currently. So anyway, that's it. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, then don't. I will provide a link to this product in my description. And yeah, see you in the next video.